Hi again, and welcome back to the Trusted Visions podcast. Pardon me for the relaxed look today. We're just returning from a successful fishing trip, so I hope you'll forgive me for that. As we continue the podcast, we're delving a little bit deeper into the regulatory environment. Jeremy, tell me what an advisor might be subject to, or better yet, what advice would you have for an advisor if they're faced with a regulatory event?
John, I love it that we're covering this topic for this month about the regulatory concerns and things for our audience to do. I mean, even just last week, the responses we got were a lot of people saying, I didn't even think about the reality of regulatory issues. So, love that we're covering this topic. And this week, we're really going to dive into what are some potential issues that you want to be concerned about and what to do. And obviously, you have the obvious ones of customer complaint, alternative investment products that went awry, anything regulatory or criminal. Obviously, you got to be concerned of what your broker dealer is going to do because their hands are really tied there. But some of those other issues that a lot of our audience doesn't think about can be pretty minor, and that's violating text messaging policies. Like I said last week, not doing your continuing education. That's the importance of keeping an eye on your dashboard and checking your emails from your broker dealer of things that are going on. NIGOs, not in good order accounts. If you have a lot of NIGOs or you're not giving attention to those NIGOs, those are some issues that you really got to be concerned about and make sure that you're keeping up with it. Just because you think it's minor, especially with the new regulations that have come out, make sure that you're staying on top of it. And the first thing I would tell our audience outside of that is when something comes awry, don't panic. Don't try and hide it. Don't try and skirt the rules. Make sure that you're talking to your supervisor and immediately report whatever that issue may be to your broker dealer or your supervision team immediately. Don't try and hide it because it's only going to make it worse, or just don't think, hey, this is going to go away. Even if you're not sure what to do or whether it's an issue, talk to your broker dealer because it's better to be safe than sorry and clean up the mess. And when I say don't panic, when something comes up from a regulatory standpoint that is concerning, that you may have an issue of being terminated for cause or permitted to resign, you should immediately be reaching out to a consultant like the Trusted Visions team or somebody out there like us to talk through the what ifs, because things aren't going to happen immediately. I'm working with a client right now that he has his preliminary hearing coming up next month on some criminal issues. And, his thoughts are, hey, I'm just going to wait until that preliminary hearing because if this can get plead down, then I have nothing to worry about. That's not always the case. And my advice to him or anybody in our audience would be, let's plan ahead of if that preliminary hearing doesn't go well, what broker dealers are going to take you and where can you pivot to go immediately? Because in reality, after that preliminary hearing, your broker dealer could say, you know what, we're terminating you for cause or we're permitting you to resign immediately. You don't want that to happen until you know where you're going, because you're getting shut off of all system access immediately, which is going to make your transition that much more difficult because you don't have the client data. So plan ahead. And as I've said on previous podcasts, if for some reason you do have to move, then you know where you're going to go. But number two, if for some reason it does get plead down or it doesn't become an issue, that doesn't mean you have to move. If you're working with a true consultant that is on your side of the table, then they should be okay with you exploring options, knowing that there's a potential you don't move anytime soon. Now, another piece of advice to our audience is if your broker dealer does come and say, hey, we're going to have to send this to the rep review committee for review to determine what the consequences are going to be, or hey, we got to talk to leadership to figure out what it is. Get a clear and concise time frame of when that's going to happen, not only verbally, but follow up via email. And it doesn't have to be threatening, but just tell your supervisor, hey, if it's all right with you, I'm going to send you an email just so that I have this in writing for both you and I's protection. You don't have to be threatening about it, but make sure you get things in writing. And when they come to you and say, "Hey, we're going to permit you to resign," or we're going to term you for cause," ask them what that U5 language is going to be, because the majority, if not all, broker dealers out there, they may take you if you're permitted to resign or term for cause, but they're going to want to know what that language is. And don't just go for whatever that language they say is going to be on there. You can negotiate that, because as I said last week, whatever is on your U5 is going to follow you for your career, and depending on that language, can be career ending. So don't be hostile about it if they come to you with what the U5 language is going to be or term you for cause. Talk to a consultant, talk to an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice at all, but talk to an attorney and negotiate that, because I've had several instances in my career where a broker dealer is saying, "Hey, we're going to term you for cause or permit you to resign." And they went back and said, "Hey, can I voluntarily resign? And I'll do it within 2 weeks." Because, as I said last week, a broker dealer, anytime they put something on your U5, they have to justify it to the regulators, being the SEC and FINRA. So most of the time, they don't want to term you for cause. So negotiate that and don't just go with what they're saying, because depending on that language on your U5 is going to depend on what broker dealers, if any, are going to take you as a new advisor going forward. So I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I look forward to diving further into this regulatory issues this month. Hope everybody has a blessed week.
Thanks, Jeremy. And that's great information. I know when it comes to regulatory events, you certainly do not want to put that information off to a later time. Address it now. And audience, if you'd like to get a hold of Jeremy, you can reach him at 480-430-5012 or email him at info@trustedvisions.com. See you next week.